Ladies and gentlemen, the world seems to be very uneasy about U.S. leadership now. This came out in NPR September 23rd, 2019. Trump returns to the UN this week, facing growing unease about U.S. leadership. Hmm. Okay, Trump will return to the world's biggest stage this week to address heads of state at a time when the U.S. global leadership is seen as waning. When he takes the stage at the United Nations General Assembly for the time on Tuesday, Trump is expected to affirm America's leadership role and underscore that America is a positive alternative. Okay. Okay. So people are not comfortable with dealing with the US, you know, and a lot of this is from Trump's trade war. That's where most of this is stemming from. Not to mention, things didn't go so smoothly at that G7 at all. So leaders will be closely watching how he addressed global concerns about the U.S. trade battle with China and insecurity over the Persian Gulf as confidence in his strategy falters. During last year's speech, many of those same leaders appeared to laugh when Trump boasted about his administration and he has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country, which we know was false. We know that is really, really false. So I guess this is Trump's way of putting everybody at ease. We know he's not a big consoler, that's for sure. The idea that U.S. global leadership is on the decline should be no surprise. Trump arrived in Washington promising supporters he'd put America first and not be president of the world. He has delivered on those pledges in many ways, shrinking the diplomatic corps and pulling out of both the Paris Climate Accord and the proposed 12 nation Trans Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement. A 25 nation survey by the Pew Research Center last year found a median of 27% of the people outside the United States had confidence in Trump, would do the right thing in world affairs. And a new survey of 50 former U.S. ambassadors and senior national security officials by the Global Situation Room public relations firm finds that top diplomats from Republican and Democratic administrations almost unanimously feel U.S. influence has declined under Trump. 92% of those surveyed said U.S. adversaries have grown stronger. Wow. All right, y'all, we're going to listen to this audio here from NPR.
President Trump is in New York for the United Nations General Assembly, and this morning he'll address leaders on the world's biggest stage. There is plenty to talk about, obviously. The United States is staring down Iran and also remains locked in a trade battle with China. But American global leadership also is not what it once was. NPR White House correspondent Franco Ordonez takes a look.
This will be the third time that President Trump addresses world leaders at the United Nations. Last year, many of those same leaders appeared to laugh at Trump as he boasted of his administration's wins.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country.
It was then that the laughter started, at first softly, surprising President Trump.
Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
John Feely served as U.S. ambassador in Panama until last year. He saw that moment as a symbol of how U.S. leadership has waned.
What it means is that the United States is not perceived as being led by somebody he's still very, very powerful, but not being perceived as a nation that is led by somebody they take completely seriously.
President Trump strode into the White House promising supporters he'd put America first and not be the president of the world. He's delivered on those pledges in many ways, shrinking the diplomatic corps and pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. Trump's speech comes as faith in American global leadership is falling. An international survey by the Pew Research Center last year found that just 27% of people outside the United States had confidence Trump would do the right thing in world affairs. Former U.S. ambassadors surveyed by the Global Situation Room public relations firm almost unanimously agree that American influence has declined.
George Shultz, one of the great Secretary of States we've had, once compared diplomacy to gardening.
That's Ivo Daalder, who formerly served as the ambassador to NATO. He says the United States is no longer where it needs to be.
He said you have to be there, you got to pull the weeds out, you got to water the flowers and take the buds off. And that's true for diplomacy. You've got to go. You've got to be in the countries. You've got to understand what they're doing.
Some diplomats have bristled at Trump's apparent affection for authoritarian leaders while treating traditional allies like adversaries. Trump has even boasted recently that he's less popular in Europe than his predecessor.
And then I read where Obama is more popular in Germany than Trump. He's got to be. I'm making people pay their bills. He's got to be. You know, the day that I'm more popular than him, I'm not doing my job.
John Simon served as ambassador to the African Union. He says Trump may have failed to maintain important alliances, but that the country has also grown tired of the burdens of America's leadership.
It's absolutely not just the president's fault. I think part of the reason the president is because he articulated a vision of the United States in the world that was somewhat at odds with our traditional role as a leader on the world stage.
Simon said the answer to this problem is not just about changing the president, but deciding as a country what the United States stands for. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, Washington.
We have evidence today that sports fans...
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not surprised to hear about this. I actually thought it was going to happen a lot sooner. But the fact that the world is losing confidence in the U.S. is really not shocking. I kind of knew this was going to happen under Trump. And I bet if we go into a recession, it will be no confidence in the U.S. at that point. Just remember this next recession, they said it's going to be far worse than anything we've ever seen before. And it will be a global recession, And I was even reading there's signs of recession in countries already. And many of them wanted Trump to stop this trade war, but he's not going to listen to anybody. Even Boris Johnson thought at the G7 he would be able to talk Trump into dropping this trade war. But we know Trump is never going to do that. Okay, not even for somebody like Boris Johnson. So, ladies and gentlemen, many of these world leaders no longer feel like they can depend on the U.S. to lead the rest of the world. And they are now looking at many of the adversaries of the U.S. like China and flocking to them. And we know after he called Africa a shithole, he can't even go into Africa now. He can't go now. That's why he sent Melania, if you remember. So please tell me what you think, y'all. Please leave your comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.